Well, now it's time to
Thank you.
move to our next presentation. So, Dr. Kesha, can you give us a self-introduction and say hello?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. One is Dr. Kesha O'Reilly, and I'll just go ahead and jump in. So imagine 1,440, 1,440 minutes in every day, 1,400 minutes, 1,440 minutes in every day to be your authentic self, 1,440 minutes in every day to be you. How authentic are you in your 1,440? So for the next 20 minutes, think about how you embrace authentic leadership in building your unique leadership style. I'm Dr. Kesha O'Reilly, a Global Medical Affairs Director in HIV at Gilead Sciences, a biotech company based in California. My company brings medications to the market to meet unmet needs. Our focus goes beyond medicine. We also strive to remedy health inequities and break down barriers to care. I'm so blessed to be based here in Dallas, but I work on a global team responsible for the development and execution of a above-brand strategy for HIV prevention and treatment. We create possible at Gilead, and I enjoy creating possible in this space of HIV. I work to cultivate a culture that allows me to create and execute innovative approaches and initiatives that support healthcare professionals and communities impacted by HIV. Next slide. One more slide. So when we think about authenticity, we think about not being fake, being original. My authenticity is the power of me. It's the thing that God gave me. My individuality makes me unique. The way I think, how I view my life, the way I wake up every day with a goal and making as many options as I possibly can for myself, my family, and my community makes me authentic and unique. I'm intentional in connecting with others as well as solving problems. Next slide. So what do you see? What's your angle? When you're leading a team, what angles do you use to create your team's buy-in? Now, research says and shows that when we personally care about our employees, we get the best version of themselves. When employees feel valued and supported on a personal level, they're more likely to be motivated, loyal, and willing to go above and beyond their roles, which drives results, which gives us great outcomes for our company. But when you think about the title for this keynote, Embracing Authentic Leadership, Building Unique Leadership Styles, we must make sure the ABCs of authentic leadership is at the foundation. Next. So A, awareness. We must have awareness, self-awareness, but also awareness of others on our team. Align your actions with your core values. What principles guide your decisions? What do you stand for? Now, I remember my first professional leadership role 5 years after graduating with my doctorate of pharmacy. I worked for a company that provided pharmacy services to jails and prisons. I was hired as Director of Pharmacy Services, and my client was the Maryland Department of Corrections, a very male-dominating environment. I was responsible for 24,000 lives and had a drug budget of $36 million. Now, if you aren't aware, individuals who are incarcerated are the only folks that have a constitutional right to health care. So there I was in this position that I had prayed for, like, oh God, I really, really want it, and I got it. But they say, be careful what you pray for. I was working in a system that was not set up for people to receive quality health care. Always in a flux of possible budget cuts or actual budget cuts, I had to have consistent talks with myself at the end of the day, when things were just so crazy, being able to say, is this appropriate? Now I know what the guidelines said, but what we're doing is it's not really lining up with the guidelines. So early in this position, I would have to ask myself at the end of the day, how do you feel? Did you do enough? I would tell you there were many days that the answer would be, I feel bad and I didn't do enough. The gut check was something I was blessed to have, but uncomfortable. And someone said earlier about the fear and doing things, even though you have that fear. I was so scared and frustrated at the same time because I felt like I know I'm a healthcare professional, I'm licensed, I'm trained to provide good quality of care, but I'm in a situation where that's not always the best. So becoming more self-aware as a professional, I knew I had to do something different. So I decided to pay closer attention to those men that were in charge, listening to what they did as well as what they didn't value was important. There were many, many cost-saving practices that the system was doing that was negatively impacting people's care. Once I became aware of their goals and how they define success, I used it to my advantage. I used it to my advantage on how to do the right thing and to get buy-in for upper leadership. And I'll tell you what the win was. Whenever I was offering something that I knew they would be against, I would say, but by doing this, you are less likely to be in the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, or the Washington Post, which were our local newspapers, if the word ever got out on what we were doing. This always made them pause, and sometimes, for the most part, they went with my recommendations. Authentic leaders we must have awareness. Next. Be bold. Embrace what makes you unique. Focus on enhancing your strengths rather than fixing your weaknesses. Be bold while you're at the table. Don't forget the voices of who isn't in the room. Boldness empowers you to take action and drive change. It's about being proactive, challenging the status quo, and leading by example. When you lead boldly, you inspire others. You inspire others to be authentic and courageous. Your bold actions encourage your team to express their true selves and contribute their best ideas. Now, you can be bold in your professional career, but also outside your job. And I would tell you, running for office for Dallas College Board of Trustees was a bold decision that I decided back in February to put my toe into the political field, the political arena. I had no idea how to run a campaign or even how to prepare for a debate on educational issues. However, my interest in the intersectionality of education, economics, and healthcare fueled my desire to be bold and to run for this office. And I'm happy to say that I sit before you on the Zoom as a new elected official on the Dallas College Board of Trustees representing District 7. Now, see connections. Authentic leadership thrives on genuine connections. By building strong relationships, leaders can inspire trust, enhance collaborations, and create inclusive environments where everyone feels valued and heard. Now, last month, I was responsible for creating and executing a symposium at an international HIV conference. So back in, I guess, February and March, when I got that I was told that I was going to be doing this, I wanted to do something very innovative that hadn't been done before. So I started thinking about what did that look like? And for me, it was about having a very diverse panel around how people can prevent themselves or community from acquiring HIV. So I wanted to have someone with lived experience, maybe someone who went to a doctor's office, a community-based organization, and asked about getting an HIV test. I also wanted to have a healthcare professional give their perspective on what it looked like in their setting, if they're in an ambulatory care or at a doctor's office, to be able to offer HIV education and counseling. And I also wanted to get a government perspective. And so think about it, I'm on a global team trying to figure out, well, what does that look like in terms of the individuals, the government, as well as the healthcare professionals. So I had I chose some people from Spain, another individual from Australia, along with Thailand and the UK. But when it came to the US, I was like, do I do a healthcare professional, or do I do a government person, or do I do someone with lived experiences? So I decided, because remember, I create possible, get a chance to do that with the company that I work for. I went with selecting a government official, but not just a local government official. It was someone in the White House. So I used my connections and was able to get someone who is the actual White House advisor on HIV and AIDS for the United States government. He agreed to do it. I was all excited. So here I am, July 19th at DWI, getting on the plane, heading to Germany to put on this amazing, at least I'm hoping it's going to be an amazing symposium. Right before they say, turn your phones off, I get a call. And guess who it is? It is the advisor. And he says to me, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to participate. This was 72 hours before before the actual date and time for the symposium. I didn't know what to do. I decided I'm just going to sleep on this plane. So I think it was 14 hours flight. I land in Germany, and all I kept thinking about, who do I know? What are those connections? What are those relationships that I can call in a favor? And I'm so thankful that people in my circle, the connections that I have made over the 15 years that I've been doing this work, they came through. Not only did I have an amazing substitute, it was the predecessor. So it was the person who was in the role at the White House before the individual who had originally accepted my invitation to participate. And I was so grateful and thankful for my colleagues, my friends, but also this individual who stepped in at the last moment. And I'm saying that to say your connections go so far. And if you show up in your authentic self in those relationships, they will take you even farther, not only just in your personal life, but also from your professional perspective as well. So I want to just go back and reiterate or reaffirm these key takeaways that I've shared with you. Awareness. Remember, authentic leadership begins with a deep understanding of who you are, your values, your strengths, and your passion. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of your unique leadership. Boldness. Embrace the courage to act challenging. Boldness is about leading with conviction and inspiring others to follow. And lastly, connection. Cultivate genuine connections with those around you. Authentic leadership thrives on relationships that are built on trust, empathy, and collaborations. So as you continue your leadership journey, I encourage you to embrace your authentic self fully. I want you to share your unique perspective, your experiences, your strengths, that using those to make yourself a powerful leader. Don't be afraid to lead with integrity, courage, as well as compassion, because these are qualities that would not only define your leadership, but will also inspire and empower others around you. So take a moment after this session or later on today and reflect on what you learned today, not just from me, but also from the other ladies who presented today and participated in the discussions. Identify one action that you can take immediately to align your leadership approach more closely with your authentic self. Whether it's being more transparent, taking a bold step, or deepening your connections, let today be the beginning of a more authentic leadership journey for you. Probably went less than my 20 minutes, but I'm going to stop now because I didn't know if we were going to have questions and answers or time for Q&A.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and for sharing your story. Yes, and so as a reminder, please keep those questions coming into the chat. And if anyone would like to ask a live question, just raise your hand via Zoom and I can unmute you. So I'll start with this question from Rochelle, and she says, what has been one of your greatest joys in being a leader?
My greatest joy has been creating other leaders. And it's been so amazing just because as you get older, you start to see the younger people who are now older. And so recently, 2 weeks ago, I went to a national pharmacy conference and I got a chance to see my pharmacy students from when I was a fellow and they were in pharmacy school. And now they're in their second or third job coming out of pharmacy school. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're doing so many amazing things. Part of me was kind of like fearful because I was like, oh my God, that means I'm getting old. But I also felt like, no, that also means that I'm getting better as well, because I met individuals who were my students or were my fellow 10 years ago and now seeing where they are, and then 5 years ago and being able to see. So that really brings me joy because I get a chance of seeing all of the wonderful things that people imparted in me as a student and then as a young professional, and then being able to take that in and then share it with others along with my own personal experiences over the past years.
Well, thank you so much. And I think we have time for maybe one more question and then final thoughts before we move to our last panel of the day. And Hannah says, how do you balance being authentic with fitting into the work culture you find yourself in?
Prayer, first and foremost, and making sure that what I'm doing, I'm enjoying doing. And I would say this is that you can start at a company and the culture can be one way, but as you continue with the company, be it your immediate manager may change, or having a reorg within the organization, and some of the culture of the company that you started with ends up evolving into a different culture. And so for me, it's always being able to make sure no matter what job I enter, that there are some core things that I'm comfortable with. And as you can tell from my presentation, I love to do things a little bit different. And so I'm always making sure that I'm in an environment that from an authentic perspective, I can always be in a creative manner. Sometimes it may be where, there is compromise in terms of things in which I really, really deep down inside want to do, and it may not align with the company. So being able to have the bottom line or those 3 or 4 things that no matter what it is at the end of the day, I know that we're at this environment that I'm sitting in right now, that the universe has me in terms of if I am growing or if I am a seed and I'm starting to just kind of poke my little head out of the dirt. What are those things that align up with who I am and how I see myself at the end of the day? And sometimes it sits well and you could be at that company for 15 years, 5 years, or 10 years. Sometimes it's I'm here for a year and let me go somewhere else because it's really not fitting to what I need it to be. And it's okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. All right, we have one more question that came in, and then I promise we'll move to our panel. So from Sara, she says, I feel like I'm 70% authentic and 30% trying to be the leader each member of my team wants or expects from me. Is that normal? Are we as leaders ideally supposed to be 100% authentic?
I think the answer is that 70-30 to me, that's okay. I think the definition of being authentic has to be defined. The fact that you are a leader and you're wanting to make sure that your team is getting from you what they need, that's how you show up in your authentic manner. I don't think that necessarily when I think about me being authentic means that I have to agree with everything that someone is saying. That doesn't necessarily, for me, that's not being authentic. For me, being authentic is making sure that my voice is being heard, because that's what I need for myself in being authentic, that I'm in an environment that is nurturing. That's for me being authentic. So I think for me, when I think about being authentic, see there, I can't even say the word. So being authentic is being comfortable with whatever your true values are at the end of the day. And I love how you put the example of as a leader being able to be what you need to be with your different team members. We all are different. So no matter where you sit in terms of a leader, 3 people, 2 people, 1 person, it may not, it's not going to be the same for everyone. So you're going to have different people on your team, different times as a leader throughout your professional career and personal career, that you're going to have to manage different personalities. And you can still be authentic in that, but how in which you meet their need is different for everyone else. So I just think that 70-30, I don't really have I don't think there's a certain percentage of it, but really being able to say, what are your core values that you really want to show as a leader, and then being able to pivot in a manner that you can address the needs of your team in order to be able to achieve the outcome that you're being given based upon your objectives for your company.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. So before we move to our final panel, any advice or words of wisdom for all of our viewers today?
For myself, I mean, I love this opportunity, and I think that for me as a healthcare professional, I'm licensed in 5 states, and now going into my 12th year in corporate America. And as at the end of the day, I wake up as a female, I go to sleep as a female. And so understanding that being a female is different than being a male, and I'm okay with that. And so understanding that systems, in terms of the systems that I have experienced, are very paternalistic, and I wear multiple hats. I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm also a daughter. And so I bring all that to work with me, and I am comfortable with that. So I would say to any person that's on the Zoom today, is to really think about when you show up in rooms, be it from a career perspective or a personal perspective, what is it that you really want people to take away from you? And for those of us who are over 40 on the Zoom, I tend to wake up and say, I don't know how many more summers I have in my right mind. So while I have my right mind and coming out of this summer and going to the next summer, what are those things that I genuinely want people, my community, my family to get from me? And that serves as my compass. So if I could offer anything to anyone that hears my voice, is to kind of sit with yourself and to start to ask those questions, because we don't stay in these roles forever. And at some point in time, we move over through time, through life. And so what are those things that you want to get out of life? What are those things that you want people to take from you as you're going through life, and being able to align yourself accordingly?
Well, we really appreciate the time you took to present to us today, and thank you for your wonderful thoughts.